Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Select Board meeting agenda for September 15, 2020, 7 p.m. Select Board meeting will be conducted by Zoom meeting, remote participation. I just have a few guidelines to go over tonight and some ground rules for everybody who may be participating. Just a memo to read. Updated by March 24, 2020, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. The various boards and committees representing the town of Grafton will conduct their public meetings and hearings via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted. Just a reminder that we will be conducting through Zoom meeting. The meeting we have turned off the question and answer session within the function. If anyone from the public would like to address or ask a question of the board, you may do so by the hand raising function within the Zoom meeting. In addition to that, I am required by tell everyone to please rename each one of the panelists to be your first and last name, please. So I've got GCTV. Becca, if you could rename yours, that would be great. Thank you. Make sure that your name's first and last name are there. To get access to the floor, I'd ask that you please raise your hand and I'll call you. I'll let you have the floor to address. And let me see if I should probably know this by heart by now. I think that's it. Okay, great. All right, so let's begin the meeting by roll call vote. When I call your name, please answer in the affirmative that you are present. Ms. DeFazio.
DeFazio, present.
Mr. Often.
Matt Often, present.
Ms. Roy.
Roy, present.
Mr. Frisbee.
Present.
Ms. Meekins.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Terenzini.
Present.
And we have Grafton Community Television here. Okay, staff that's present today that's on the agenda, Mr. Berger.
Present.
Great. All right, thank you. We could get started. We have just a couple of quick announcements here. Just a reminder that we made some changes how participants' questions will be handled during the select board meetings. Going forward, if a participant has a question pertaining to an agenda item, they may ask a question by using the raise hand function of the webinar. The participant will be called upon by the board and then temporarily brought in as a panelist by the host to ask their question. Following the question and answer, the resident will be downgraded back to participant. The Q&A function for this meeting has been disabled. Just as a reminder for the public that the Municipal Center remains closed to the public. However, appointments can be made between the hours of 8:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. Monday through Friday by calling the department directly. Just a reminder that tomorrow the Select Board will be holding a goals retreat and workshop at 7 p.m. at the Lions Club Pavilion at 68 Brigham Hill Road. Since it will not be televised, it is open to the public, but I do want to inform people that there will be really no public participation. Minutes obviously will be taken. The results of the meeting will be reviewed at the September 22nd Select Board meeting, going over our goals. And that's all I have for announcements. We don't have any public comments, Ms. Roy? I believe so. Okay, thank you. All right, first up here, I'm going to ask the committee to pass over the Charter Franchise License Agreement. We're not quite ready for that yet, so my apologies for putting that on there. Next up, we have resignations for Assistant Town Administrator Rebecca Meekins.
I move the board vote to accept the resignation of the Assistant Town Administrator Rebecca Meekins effective September 18th, 2020, and to send her a letter of thanks.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, Becca, thank you so much for all of your years of service. I really appreciate the good work that you've done over the years.
Ms. Fazio.
Yeah, I want to second that. Becca, you will be sorely missed. I thank you for all the work you've done for our town and our committee, and I wish you the best of luck in whatever community you go to. I know we'll be very lucky to have you. So thank you for all you've done for Grafton.
Any further discussion? Ms. Meekins, I want to personally thank you too for your time here in Grafton. I know you did a stint as an intern a few years back. In your role here was instrumental in helping out with municipal operations. Furthermore, coming back here as an assistant town administrator and working with the town through various boards and meetings and facilitating projects and initiatives on behalf of the town. I think you've done an outstanding job, and I'm really sorry to see you go. But I know the town, the community that you'll be serving is going to be extremely fortunate to have you. I think with your demonstrated professionalism, the other towns are going to be extremely lucky, and you're going to have a really good, bright future and public administration ahead of you. And we wish you all the best. Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay. All those by roll call vote. Mr. Fazio,
Fazio, aye.
Mr. Frisbee,
Frisbee, aye.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, I.
Mr. Often,
Often aye.
Peter Carlson, aye. Clear motion carried. Thank you. Next up, we have new business regarding town administrator section 19 disclosure statement. Mr. Terenzini, do you want to just kind of give a brief overview of what's in front of us tonight?
Essentially, whatever an action that I might take in my official position poses a conflict of financial interest, I need to disclose that to the board. In this instance, notwithstanding that it is a part of the job to sign off on the warrants, I need to make this public disclosure that since my pay and possible reimbursements are on those several warrants. The board needs to make a determination that my financial interests are not so significant that it might cause me to be at conflict with the discharge of my official duties. Should you find that agreeable to you, you would vote to accept the form, authorize the chairman to sign it, and then it would be placed in the public record with the town clerk.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Terenzini before we take a motion? Okay, could I have a motion, please?
I move the board vote to authorize the chairman to sign the temporary town administrator Carter Terenzini's disclosure of non-elected municipal employee financial interest and determination by appointing authority as requested by Mass General Law, Chapter 268A, Section 19.
Second.
Motion made at second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none. All those by roll call vote, please. Mr. Fazio,
Fazio, aye.
Mr. Frisbee,
Frisbee, aye.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, I.
Mr. Often,
Often aye.
Carlson, aye. Thank you very much. Okay, declare the motion carried. All right, next up here, we have agenda item here. We have the building department, director of the building department, Mr. Berger, here to discuss attached proposed fees and schedule for the building department. Mr. Berger, if you would mind coming on to the meeting and introducing yourself and giving us an overview of what you're asking for tonight.
Sure. Obviously, my name's Bob Berger. I'm the inspector of buildings for the town of Grafton. If you haven't realized, we have gone with the online permitting, and I'm asking for the board to consider a couple new categories. And I did outline it in a document, but I'll give you an overview. I'm looking for data entry into our online permitting program, and I have some different fees associated with that. So the first one would be for new construction residential. We're asking for an additional fee of $300 if you want to come in and give us a paper application. There's a lot of work to put it into the computer and into the database. It's about 3 hours, 3.5 hours to get all the information uploaded, scanned. So we're asking $300 for that. And for additions, we're asking for $150. And then for the mechanical permits, that would be the gas, the electric, plumbing, and mechanical. we're asking for $100 to input the paper application. See, we cannot refuse a paper application. The state has that form, so we have to keep accepting it. And I think this is a way for people to make their best choice on how they want to submit. We're also asking to change the fee structure of the electrical permits just for the commercial aspect. It hasn't been looked at in 15 years, and it is so old that on these commercial jobs, we're having a hard time figuring out what we're supposed to charge based on that fee schedule. So we took a survey of our sister towns, and we realized that most of our sister towns for the electrical are asking for so much per thousand. So right now our building permits are based on $10 per thousand. So we were thinking that's what we want to bring over. It would just make the pricing of the electrical permits easier. And that's basically what we're asking you to consider tonight.
All right, any questions for Mr. Berger? Ms. Roy?
How many paper applications do you typically see for new construction or an addition?
We are still receiving, I would say maybe 30%.
Do you think these fees would deter any of that?
I would hope it would. And we're doing the best we can to educate the contractors. We're constantly on the phone. We're almost like, OpenGov tech support on this is how you upload, and we're walking them through the steps, which I really don't mind doing that. That's part of good customer service. It's just when they go and they drop off all their applications with, a plan set that has 25 pages in it that we have to go over to the plotter. We have to scan it. We have to save it in the public file. Then we have to take each page and build each PDF on top of each other, and then input it into the database, into the proper bucket.
Mr. Often?
Yes, through you to Mr. Berger. So presumably these documents that they're like the plotted plans and all that, they come from source documents that they're printing out. So it seems to me that it would be more efficient of a process end to end to just have them take those source documents and input them into the online system. Is that correct?
That's our ultimate goal. This is why we went with online permitting. We went with online permitting so we would not have to do the data input. And, like I said before, we can't say to contractor A, we're not accepting your paper application, because
Right.
I can't deny him on that. I mean,
But as we think about not just like our end of it, but their end of it, it seems to me that they're taking these documents and they're printing them out on, which has to have some cost and time associated with it. Now, the contractors that do a ton of work, I'm sure that this is just their process and they're pretty used to it, but it seems like it would be much more efficient if they've got documents that can just be uploaded to a system. It'd be much more efficient to just do that than actually to print them out and bring them into the municipal center. Am I off base on that, or?
no, I don't want paper. Meaning if you're going to go online, I don't get a paper application. Everything's electronic. So if the contractor has it on a stick or has it electronically, then he's not going to submit paper. He's going to go online and he's going to submit it online.
Yeah, I'm just
That's
trying to figure out.
That's our ultimate goal.
Trying to figure out if it's more or less work for them in this process. Because if it's a lot more work for them, if it's going to take the contractor an extra 3 to 5 hours because they're not real familiar with the system, $100 to them, that's not going to bother them at all. They're just going to drop the documents off. I guess that's what I'm thinking.
For the new construction, we're not asking for 100, we're asking for 300. And for the renovations, we're asking for 150.
Mr. Frisbee?
A couple questions. First, Bob, how many hours a week would you say you spend inputting the data from the paper applications that you receive?
Well, like I said before, we got about 10% or 20% of paper applications. So, you know, you got a McGill house or a Brendan Holmes house, and you're gonna get one application. You know, I can do it, my secretary can do it. Takes about 3.5 hours to get all that information in the database.
And in addition to that, with these other communities that you looked at, were there any other communities that have implemented a $300/$150 fee?
I don't know the exact number, but I know Shrewsbury's doing it. And I think another town I talked to are doing it. It seems to be once they go online permitting, they find this little hiccup that people still want to submit electronically. I mean, paper. And again, we can't say no. We're just trying to push them in the right direction.
All right, any other questions? Mr. Hoffman?
Through to Mr. Berger. I'm just wondering, you said that you had checked in with other communities in terms of how they do their electrical permitting fees. I'm wondering if the rate that Grafton is proposing is in line with our sister communities in terms of the rate per thousand.
You have a document. I think Carter gave you that document in your packet, or maybe
Yep.
Becca.
I'm looking at it.
And I have the sister communities on the back page of it, and it ranges from $10 to as little as $6. Now, when we were doing the building permits, we were at $3 when we first started, so much per thousand. And then the last go around, I think we went up from 7 to 10. So I was just trying to keep it uniform.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, do we have a motion?
I move the board vote to approve the adjustments of the building department fee schedule as presented with an effective date of January 1st, 2021.
Second.
The motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Bisbee?
Yeah, I don't know about this one. You know, we have a balancing act to perform here, right? Like, we're trying to be good stewards and promote good customer service and an atmosphere within the building that is welcoming to, you know, residents and developers alike. We do, as Bob mentioned, want to push them in the right direction. And I don't want to see your department burdened with something that could easily be solved by people taking their own initiative and doing something online for data entry themselves. But I'm not sure running straight to a $300 essentially penalty is the way to go to push people in the right direction, as opposed to maybe some education. I'm interested in what everybody else thinks. I could go either way on this.
Ms. Roy?
I agree. I'm a little concerned. That was what I intended my question to be when I said, do you think this will deter people? I meant deter people from doing business in Grafton, not necessarily deter people from doing the paper application. I understand that's the ultimate goal, but I guess I would want to know a little bit more when you said you reached out to other sister communities about what they were charging. How many are charging? How many of them have successfully gone all paperless through using these fees? And did they step up to fees, or did they start at this high? So I think I'm a little on the fence too.
Was that a question, Ms. Roy, or was that directed to Mr. Berger, or is it just a statement? Just want to make sure you get addressed.
Yeah, I think I would need some more information on this before I would feel comfortable about what our sister communities are doing. And has any community successfully gone completely paperless? Have these fees been successful in deterring paper applications, or has it just deterred people from doing business in those communities?
Okay. Mr. Fazio?
Yeah, I'm sort of in the same boat here. I see what Mr. Berger is trying to accomplish, and I certainly don't want the burden in the office, but at the same time, there is a level of customer service that is expected in the office, and going down to 20% or 30% from 100%, I don't think is a bad number, and I would want to do a little bit more research on these sister communities and find out what the success rate is, just like my other board members want to do, and just kind of see, you know, did it go down another 10%, or is it deterring builders to go into other communities? So I'm not opposed to the idea, but I don't really think I'm ready to vote yes on this tonight.
All right, any other discussion? Mr. Alston?
Yeah, I guess just to Mr. Berger, can you give any indication as to what the reasoning is? Like, what are the blockers for people using the online system? For me, I'm kind of on the fence as well. I don't know necessarily if it's going to be a tremendous burden for them to input things into the system if, you know, $150 to $300 for a $50,000 addition or a $300,000 home is going to deter them. I'm just not sure whether or not it makes sense or not.
Well, you know, to answer that, I can get some more information from our sister communities. I don't know if anybody has gone 100% paperless because of the fees that we're trying to get, and they have enacted. The $300 is for a new construction, and we're not going to deter construction in Grafton, because if they want to submit by paper, they have to, you know, pay $300 to input it. The permit fee for a new house now that we're at $10 per thousand, you're talking $4,000 or $5,000 for a building permit. I can get you whatever information you want, and if you don't like this idea, that's also fine. I mean, we're trying to get paperless, and if it takes my secretary 3 hours to put in all the paperwork, and you don't feel that that's good customer service, charging them a figure, then we don't have to.
Any other discussion? I guess I do share the same sentiments of my board on the sister communities. I only find that are the sister communities all using the same application, or are all the sister communities using different applications for permitting? The only reason why I ask that is I like to look at it as like, who else is using this in other towns? And then, you know, like you said, what was the acceptance rate? And then I think to me that would be more beneficial. But just off the top of your head, Mr. Berger, are the sister communities that you're using the same exact permitting system?
Well, the majority are using OpenGov. OpenGov Viewpoint, they have the majority share in Massachusetts. But any online permitting is basically the same process. Might look a little bit different, but it's all the same. Upload your documents, fill out a form, and that's how you get reviewed.
Mr. Fazio.
Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Berger, do you know if there's any communities that are doing incentives for those who are doing the online applications? So instead of charging fees for those who aren't, do you know if there's incentives for those who are? Because that's
No,
just a different.
I have not heard of any of that.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion? Ms. Roy?
I guess when you do reach out to the sister communities, a piece of information that I would like to know is what percent are still doing paper even with fees? If it's gonna only get down to 20%, I'm not sure, but that would be a good piece of information for me, I think.
Okay. All right, any further discussion on the motion? Okay, all those by roll call vote. Mr. Fazio?
Mr. Chairman, I think Mr. Terenzini had his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Terenzini, please, my bad.
Not at all, Mr. Chairman. I'm wondering, after the board disposes of the motion, which covered everything, it covered the electrical as well as these, if you will, add-on fee for failure to file electronically, if the board would be willing to consider the matter of the electrical permit. I would hate to lose that part, which is, Mr. Berger says, is 15 years old now. I wonder if I might respectfully ask the board to circle back to that one element of this motion after it has disposed of the omnibus motion.
All right, I'll ask the committee afterwards. Any other discussion on the motion? All right, all those by roll call vote, please. Mr. Fazio,
DeFazio, nay.
Mr. Prisby,
Nay.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, nay.
Mr. Often,
Often nay.
and Peter Carlson's a nay. Okay, so we'll bring this back with that information. There was a consideration on a certain part of it. Does the board wish to entertain just the electrical permitting fees? I believe they're being referred to on page 20 of the packet. Is there any desire from the board?
I move the board vote to approve the adjustments of the building department electrical fee schedule with an effective date of January 1st, 2021.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion made and second for the electrical permitting fees. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those by roll call vote. Mr. Fazio,
DeFazio, aye.
Mr. Prisby.
Aye.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, aye.
Mr. Often,
Often aye.
Peter Carlson, aye. Okay, declare the motion carried 5-0. Okay. And Mr. Berger,
Thank you.
when do you think you may have that information that we're requesting? When do you think is a good timeline for you?
Yeah, give me a couple of weeks.
Okay, all right, I'll circle back for that. All right.
Thank you.
All right,
Everybody
thank you
have a
for
good
coming in
night.
tonight. Thanks,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Berger. Okay, next up, we have select board member reports. I had a couple of things on here. Dorian, I hope you don't mind. I put just a goals meeting update. I figure you can give the board an update from that. So I took the liberty of adding that from last week's agenda planning. But just want to give a real quick, I've got one. So I started building an Excel spreadsheet for project tracking with Mr. Terenzini in his office. It's still under development here, but I hope to have this done hopefully before the end of the week and just share it out with the board and make reference to it on a consistent basis. So I want to thank you, Mr. Terenzini, for sending over that sample that you have. I'll model it to what we have today and try to fill in some of the components that I know from my notes from previous meetings about who's taken the lead on that and when we last discussed it. And if I have notes on next steps, I'll try to fill that in. And then I want to bring that back to the select board at the next meeting, just to debut it, just to show what that's looking like. So that's all I have for updates. And then Dory, did you want to give a goals meeting update?
Sure. So as a reminder, our goals meeting is tomorrow, as Mr. Carlson mentioned in the beginning of the meeting. So we're starting at 7 p.m. I did confirm that we do have the space available. And as far as logistics, there will be people there to let us into the building, turn on the lights and everything else. And I will coordinate with Mr. Terenzini tomorrow to make sure that we have everything we need as far as water, bug spray, anything like that. So, and I'm also making the assumption that every board member got their documents back to Mr. Terenzini by end of day yesterday, and that's all taken care of. So I look forward to the discussion. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Anyone else have a select board member report? All right. Mr. Terenzini, do you have any TA reports? You're on mute, Mr. Terenzini.
My apologies. We sent you all last week a brief review of the staff meeting. We will begin to hold those on a regular basis when we settle out what the best day is going to be. Obviously, the CapEx, the capital, will be impacted a little bit. I am hoping tomorrow evening to be able to set some time next week with Ms. Roy to review their process and how we can make sure we're getting them what they need in a manner that'll work best. We've sent some sample sheets of prior work. We also expect to have the fall town meeting warrant to you for discussions. I'd like to have council on hand when we talk about the chief matter. And the departments did have some concerns about the proposed weekly report. So we're trying to circle back. Cindy and Joanne have been discussing that. Cindy's built a template that we can use that hopefully will address their concerns on that. That report, by the way, once it goes to you, is also posted on the town's website, and it would look somewhat similar to the report that you got from me this past week. We did have on Friday a discussion with the Health Alliance, particularly with respect to their responsibility for enforcement. We came away with a little bit of homework, sent them away with a little bit of homework, and I think it's probably going to be about 10 days before I can give you a full report on that. Also in that weekly, you saw that we have made an offer to a fire inspector. We await their determination. We've given them a couple of days just to think about the conditions of the offer. And we're certainly hopeful that by this time next week, we can tell you we've received their query form, scheduled their physical application and the like. And finally, we did forward to the chief a request that he collect from his peers' job descriptions for the second position, so we can try to put that together in a manner which, after the chief's review, would meet his needs. And we've asked him to identify 3 to 5 projects that perhaps could be undertaken. We talked about taking some of the delta between the part-time chief's pay and the full-time chief's pay, and perhaps either through an hourly rate with the current staff or the use of a consultant, try to knock some of these things off. So we await the chief's response on that, which I would hope we would have in a week or so. So the weekly report kind of looks pretty much like the email that I sent you last week. If you like that, if you have some different things, we want to try to make it so it's not too burdensome for the department heads, but that it is meaningful to informing you of what we have been up to, and also to informing the public so they can see the projects that are going on, the many successes and the many hurdles that we hit along the way. That's all I have for you this evening, really. Happy to answer any questions on our approach to this.
Thank you, Mr. Terrence. Mr. Frisbee.
Carter, I just want to say thank you for those weekly reports. It helps me to come into these meetings a little bit more informed than I otherwise would be, and we don't have to spend a lot of time asking questions that we already know the answers to, so I do appreciate that. I have a question for you on an unrelated matter. It had come to my attention that there was some confusion about whether CARES Act funds were attached to FEMA reimbursement funds, and it had been brought to my attention that there was some miscommunication between the town side and the school side on that. Do you know what the status is with the CARES Act funds, whether that's at all related to FEMA reimbursement funds, and whether that's been squared away with the school department?
I think we're in the process of getting that squared away now, because there were two words sent out there by the state agency. The first was that CARES money was an allotment in and of itself, and the schools thought that CARES included the FEMA reimbursement dollars. We have asked for clarification on that because we have 2 different public agencies that were told 2 different things. So we'll try to get that knocked off in the next day or 2 here.
Anything else? All right, moving on. Sorry, I don't think we have any correspondence tonight, correct? Nothing. we didn't have anything listed under discussion. So next up I've got here is meeting minutes for September 1st, 2020.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Mr. Fazio.
we do have an attendee who has a question, so I don't know if you want to acknowledge that or not.
As long as it's pertaining to the last agenda item, sure. Yeah, that's fine. Could we please bring in Miss Terry Turgeon?
Hi, Peter. Thank you. Thank you for recognizing me.
Ms. Turgeon, just let you know, just the question, please, and just try to keep any like open comments just to the questions, please. Thank you.
Absolutely, sure. Well, so to start off, thank you. I just want to welcome Carter to the town of Grafton. And I'm sorry I didn't join on earlier, but I just wanted to take a moment and thank Rebecca Meekins for her years of service to the town of Grafton. I think it goes without saying. She's been here with us since she was coming out of her college setting in 2012. And I noticed that no one else from the town thanked her, and I just wanted to have an opportunity to do that. So that was really all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right, so moving on, we have meeting minutes.
I move the board vote to approve the September 1st, 2020 meeting minutes as presented.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those by roll call vote, please. Mr. Fazio,
DeFazio, aye.
Mr. Prisby,
Frisbee, aye.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, aye.
Mr. Often,
Often I.
Peter Carlson, aye. Good, motion carried. Thank you very much. Next up, just as part of our ongoing agenda, we have the list of just some open issues right here. This is what I was working on with that spreadsheet as well, trying to combine them all in one place for us to share. Does anyone have any questions or anything right now? I know Mr. Terenzini went over a few of them, but okay, Ms. Roy, go ahead.
I would like an update if possible where we are with the election audit. Has that begun at this point? Do we know when it plans to begin? At our last update, it was supposed to be starting the week the state primaries were happening, but you know, I thought it should have been kind of done at this point.
Mr. Chairman, I would need to defer to Ms. Meekins on this question.
I don't have an update on that.
Okay, so I did call the town clerk's office today, and the information I was given is that the audit has not begun yet. So anybody know who was like the last person to contact KP Law? Would that be you, Ms. Meekins?
Nope, the last person to contact KP Law was Ginny Kramer.
Mr. Chairman, I'll reach out to council tomorrow morning and attempt to have an answer for you all tomorrow evening.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Mr. Prisby.
Yeah, this is why we need this list. That's amazing to me. Local tax relief committee, Peter, let's you and I get together this week. We need to get the people who are staff, who are mentioned in the charge on board and in a meeting so we can discuss with them what their roles and responsibilities would be under this proposal. That keeps slipping off the table.
What was this one for? I'm sorry, Mr. Prisby.
The local tax relief committee,
Okay.
we voted on a charge, or we had discussed a charge for that. We haven't voted on it yet because we were waiting to talk to the staff who were involved in the charge.
Fazio.
Do we have a date set for a TRICOM meeting? Or would it be smart for us to think about putting that on in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, we can look at the coordination of that, Mr. Fazio. I haven't, it's not something that myself, Mark Haddad, or Laura Often have discussed in, I would say, months, but I know both committees are willing to meet whenever. I guess what we'll have to do is pick a date and what are the agenda items, I guess, that we want TRICOM to go over. So we can do that out, I guess, was it next 3-4 weeks is good for people? I can look at some dates.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I think, we spoke about the beginning of the summer, getting together more frequently and having these open discussions. So I'm glad it's on the list, and it would be good to get something on the calendar.
Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think we should give Mr. Terenzini a little bit of time. I'm guessing that he's going to be quite busy over the coming weeks. And I think, he had mentioned a discussion with Finance Committee around agreeing on the revenue projections. I think that probably needs to happen, and we need to understand what that looks like. I'm very much interested in understanding what everybody's priority is from this board in our workshop tomorrow in terms of budget priorities. I think that'll be a really interesting discussion. Also, it would be good to get some clarity around the CARES Act money and FEMA reimbursement funds and all that. So there's a lot of moving parts. I think, the big discussion that really needs to happen is kicking off the budget season. So giving a little bit of extra time to kind of put that all together so that we can have a really meaningful discussion with all the information in hand would be a good idea.
Are we still interested in making a frequently asked questions for the TA search committee for the town website? Is that something that we had good intentions for, but has just kind of fallen by the wayside and we can check it off the list? Or is that something we're still trying to successfully do?
Mr. Frisbee.
Yeah, just to respond to that. So I spoke to Bernie Lynch today, and I guess we can talk about a couple different things on this list right now. His next priority would be to get together with us, which I guess he's doing on the 22nd, to discuss, what our wants and needs are. And until we sort of have that discussion, I think the frequently asked questions page would be a little bit premature. But I think we should effort that as soon as we have that discussion. And then we need to hear from Dan Conca about who his appointees to the search committee are. So I think that's a good idea to get that rolling. But I mean, I can't answer frequently asked questions right now because I still have them.
Any other questions? I am adding to this list, by the way. So if you recall back in July, we were looking at proposed financial policies that were proposed to us by Finance Committee. And the town was looking to get some feedback and follow up from bond counsel, our auditor, and I think there was one other. I need to follow up with Becca prior to Friday and just find out where any of the feedback may have been from the 3 groups. And get that together for us, and get Finance Committee back here together with us to go over any comments that were made, if you recall. So I will be bringing that forward at a future agenda item to follow up on either adopting those policies or making any changes that are proposed, and then moving that forward. Mr. Often.
Yeah, so Mark Haddad and I had both expressed an interest in gathering some of the informal commentary that was made in our first meeting to discuss it. So if it's okay with the board, we'll just carry out that conversation, make those adjustments, and they're all fairly minor, but just in advance of that next meeting.
Sure. All right, any other questions? Ms. Roy?
Do we know where we're at when it comes to select board policies? I know we were told back in July that the reason there isn't one list of them everywhere is because they're scattered everywhere. And I know with Ms. Meekins departing, if she might have knowledge where some of those policies are, I think it would be really good to make sure we get it all compiled in a list before her departure on Friday. would that be possible, Ms. Meekins? Do you know where they are or?
I have a long list of things to do between now and Friday. If I can squeeze that in, I will definitely try to do that.
Any questions? Okay, all right. All right, that was a quick meeting tonight. I want to thank everybody for coming out. At this point, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair. Before we adjourn, I do want to wish Ms. Meekins well. You know, you came up through this organization and you've done some good work. It's true, you have, and I do appreciate it. I wish you well. You know, I mean, I've had any number of bosses in the course of my 20 years of being a lawyer who were difficult people. And I've had any number of clients who didn't respect the service that I was giving them. But, you know, careers are long and the community in which you operate is small. So I'm sure we will all see each other again. And I do wish you well out there. Thank you.
Okay.
There is another, Ms. Turgeon has her hand up again. I'm not sure if you want to recognize that.
I'm not, we're into adjournment right now, please. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second,
Okay, all those by roll call vote, please. Mr. Fazio,
Fazio, aye.
Mr. Frisbee,
Yeah.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, aye.
Mr. Often,
Off tonight.
Peter Carlson, aye. Okay, I want to thank you guys. Have a great night.